Bibles should be open to Joshua chapters 1 and 2. Well, Joshua chapter 1. That's where we'll start. Your Bible there, Kenton, Colin. And then you can have your notes ready for lesson 67 here. So, Joshua chapter 1, lesson 67 is 2 spies go to Jericho. So, familiar story of the spies. Take a look at that here in depth. We know they've ended their wanderings. Joshua is the new leader. So, now they need to find out how are they going to conquer that land. God is directing them. They haven't crossed over into the promised land yet. The people are still on the east side. But before they cross over, and that might be considered an act of war, so they want to make sure they're ready and prepared for war before they cross over, they send out some spies. So, Joshua chapter 1, it says, Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea, toward and going down of the sun shall be your coast. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so will I be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Be strong and of a good courage, for unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land, which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left hand, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. God here encourages Joshua. You could imagine any of us receiving a huge task. What if we had to be the head of a big organizing committee for something? We were in charge. We had to hand out the jobs. We had to make sure that everybody did their jobs. That might be a pretty awesome task, but one that also gives us a little bit of pause and maybe some fear. So we can imagine Joshua had the same thing too. Okay? We've come across Joshua a few times before. We've seen him in the battle with the Amalekites as they were going through the wilderness. We know he went up the mountain partially with Moses before. Okay? He was a spy who went into the land and gave the good report along with Caleb. So these are ways in which we've seen Joshua before. He's been chosen by God. Again, remember, some people were disgruntled with Moses. Who made you leader? Who put you over us? Well, the Lord did it, and so he had to remind the people of that a few times and punish those who rebelled or questioned Moses' authority. God here, it's not Joshua makes himself the leader, it's not Moses. God has made Joshua the leader here. He chose him, and he's given unto him a blessing of a spirit that comes upon him to be able to do that work. Okay? He tells him here, you're going to be moving into the land. He's given him a description of the land and where it is that they're going to be going. They would need to go in, and they're going to have to fight. So God tells Joshua that. It's not going to be necessarily easy, but we're going to have to battle with the people that are there. You need to be the leader. It's a big task. Looking at electing a new president of the United States, it's one of the big tasks that president has to feel a great weight of and responsibility. He is commander-in-chief. He's leader of the army. He tells the army where to go and when to do it. And he puts soldiers in harm's way. It's a pretty awesome task. But then those verses that I think would be good for us for if any of you someday are in a position of leadership where you have to lead a company or you have to lead a large group. These verses would be good verses to come back to remember the beginning of Joshua. Especially these verses. Be strong and of good courage. Okay? God is blessing him here. He needs that. He needs to have courage. He needs to be strong, and God is encouraging him. Not only is God encouraging him, but God will also give him those gifts. Okay? So he tells him that, and then he says a few more things. Obey my law, verse 7. Okay? Obey my law, and then he promises, I will not forsake you. I will always be with you. Okay? So we see here some of those items. We go on then in chapter 1, starting at verse 8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage? Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the host, and command the people, saying, Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. And to the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh spake Joshua, saying, Remember the word which Moses the servant of the Lord commanded you, saying, The Lord your God hath given you this rest, and hath given you this land. Your wives and your little ones and your cattle shall remain in the land which Moses gave you on this side of Jordan. But ye shall pass before your brethren, armed, all the mighty men of valor, and help them, until the Lord hath given your brethren rest, as he hath given you. And they also have possessed the land which your Lord your God giveth them. Then ye shall return unto the land of your possession, and enjoy it, which Moses, the Lord's servant, gave you on this side Jordan toward the sunrising. And they answered Joshua, saying, All that thou commandest us we will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us we will go. According as we have hearkened unto Moses in all things, so will we hearken unto thee. Only the Lord thy God be with thee, as he was with Moses. Whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto thy words, and all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. So the rest of the land is described. We know there's 3 tribes, or 2.5 tribes of Reuben. The tribe of Gad and half-tribe of Manasseh wants to stay on the east side of the river. And the women and the children and the animals and probably the feeble, the old, they are going to stay there. The men who are of battle, fighting age, who are strong, they will be entering into the land with them. They're also told to get ready, be prepared to cross over the Jordan. Okay? So that they can be ready to go. And then we see those beautiful words. Hopefully that's the words of us when our leaders get before us. We will obey you because we believe that God is working through you. We believe God is directing your paths. We believe that God is in control of all things. And if we truly believe that, then we trust the decisions of our leaders that they make. All right, but what about the spies? Chapter 2. Let's see what happens there. Chapter 2, verse 1. Okay? And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go, view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all of the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, There came men unto me, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out. Whither the men went, I wot not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan unto the fords. And as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they lay down, she came up unto them upon the roof, and said unto them, And I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea when you came out of Egypt, and what ye did to the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side of Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt, neither did there any remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in the earth beneath. Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Lord, since I have showed you kindness, that ye will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, that ye will save me alive, my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. And the man answered her, Our lives for yours, if ye utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Lord hath given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. Then she let them down by a cord through the window, for her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. And she said unto them, Get you to the mountains, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourselves there 3 days until the pursuers be returned, and afterward ye may go your way. And the men said unto her, We will be blameless of this thine oath which thou hast made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which thou didst let us down by, and thou shalt bring thy father and thy mother and thy brethren and all thy father's household home unto thee. And it shall be that whosoever shall go out of the doors of thy house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with thee in thy house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. And if thou utter this our business, when we will be quit of thine oath which thou hast made us swear. And she said, According to your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. So we start that there. Joshua sends out 2 spies. Now you might say, boy, does that really show trust in God? God's told them that he's going to give them this land, and Joshua immediately sends out 2 spies to figure out if they can win? Well, that's not the case here. They needed to know a couple of things. First of all, God needed these spies to go meet Rahab. He had a plan here for this woman Rahab. And so he needed to send out these 2 spies to meet her. The report that these spies would also bring back would be an encouragement to the people that are in the camp. They're probably afraid too. We have to go to war tomorrow or in a few days. We have to do battle. They know the stories of the well-thickened walls and defense cities of the giants, and they're probably afraid. How will we be able to do this? How can we even accomplish this task? And then they realize, when this report comes back, the people in the cities are just afraid, if not more afraid, because of the stories that they have heard. So these 2 spies need to go. They go into Jericho. We don't know what they dress like. Did they dress like some travelers who were just passing through and wanted to come in the city? Were they dressed like some come in to purchase some things in the city, to go to the markets? We don't know. How did they come across Rahab? Was Rahab, we can assume, maybe watching for them? Had God put something into their heart? That also we don't read about. Okay? But here was this woman, Rahab. She was a harlot. She had no husband and yet had many men in her lives that she lived with. She was a wicked sinner, just as many in the city of Jericho were. And yet, God had begun to work in her heart. We see her confession. She's a young Christian. She's a new Christian. She's beginning to learn these things more and more. But God is going to save her because she is one of his children. So, although she had been a wicked sinner, she had begun to be changed. She had heard God use the stories that were coming in so that she began to wonder, who is this God? Who is this one that gives these people this victory? I want to know more about him. And she began to learn more and more. Rahab, unlike the rest of the people in the city, she wasn't frightened. The rest of the people in the city were looking for the spies. They assumed they would be coming. Rahab was looking in eagerness for them so that she could speak to them. She wasn't fearful because she knew the Lord was on her side. Okay? So she invites in the spies. We don't know how they got to her or got to her house or any of that, but God is obviously directing the paths here. She probably kept a lookout for them, and when she saw them not as the other people would. Oh, look, there's those Israelites. No, she saw them with joy. There they are. Let me invite them in. Let me be welcoming to them. So she did. She invited them in. Now, she confesses to them and says all those things. I know the Lord has given you the victory. He's given you this land. We've heard about the stories of how he dried up the Red Sea when you passed through that and made it on through, and how he destroyed the Egyptians there. We've heard how you've defeated already King of Sihon and King Og. We've heard those stories. News had traveled fast. But now news travels fast within the city as well. They knew there were spies there. Word got to the king. King, we saw 2 men coming in, and they sure looked a lot like these Israelites. We lost view of them, but we think they may have gone to that harlot that lives up on the wall, high up on the wall, Rahab. We believe she's gone into her house. What should we do, king? And the king says, well, let's send some men to that house, and let's have it checked out. Let's see if there are spies there. And so these men come to the house, and they knock on the door, and they ask, hey, we're from the king. Where are the men that you invited into your house? We believe they're spies. We would like to talk to them. Now, Rahab, whether God spoke to her in a vision, or whether she knew what to do, or whether it was a quick response, she knew that these men were going to be sought out by the king's men. And so she knew she had to hide them. So she took them up to her house. Now again, roofs in those days were flat on top, mud packed, like a dirt roof, probably with a bunch of timbers going across them, and they could go up there. And it was flat, and tasks could be accomplished up there. Some washing, clean. You wanted to get out of the heat of the house, you could go up onto the roof where nice breezes would pass through. And there she had been drying her flax that she had taken in. Flax that's used to make thread. And it was spread all over, and she hid the men in the flax and covered them with that. Now, you may say, how foolish of these men, because they went up onto the roof, the king's men. They went up on the roof to look, and they didn't find the men. Wouldn't they have made sense to barrel through all that flax? So remember, God is in control here. God is watching over these men so that they don't check the flax. We also have a difficult situation that's always a bit of a conundrum for us. Rahab tells the men that come from the king, those spies aren't here anymore. They've left. They've gone out of the city. I sent them on their way. That was a lie. She had hid them up under the drying flax. So she urged the king's men, quickly, come with me. It's not too long that they left out of the gates of the city. Let's go. And she encourages them, and they get to the gates of the city and take off to see if they can go catch these 2 spies. Then Rahab goes back up. She can go up to her roof and say to the men, you can come down into my house now. It's safe for you to come into the house. And she can probably, because her house is up on the wall, she can look and see those men from the king taking off, running down the road or whatever it may be, hoping to catch up to these spies. And when she sees them off in the distance, she now can tell the 2 men, the 2 spies, it's safe for you to go. Now, how do they get out of the city? The doors of the city have been shut. They're shut at night so that people couldn't come and go and be attacked. Well, there's only one way down. Since Rahab's house is up on top of the wall, she can hang down a large, long cord out of a window, brace it in the window, and the 2 spies can climb down. But before she goes, there's an agreement made. When you come back to destroy and capture the city, please save me and my family alive. That's her request. And the men grant her, the spies grant her that request. You will be saved. Anyone in this house, your family, your relatives, those who are with you, they will be saved. If, while we are destroying the city, if they decide to walk out of the house, then the blood that is shed on their skin because they stepped out, if they die, it's their fault. They need to stay in the house. And the way that we know which house will be yours, Rahab, see this scarlet rope that we're about to climb down here? This scarlet rope, hang it out the window when you see us coming around. And that way, we will know which house is yours. And anyone in here will be safe. That way we can easily find you when we see that scarlet cord. And so, these men climb down the cord, they say their goodbyes. She advises them, don't go the king's road. That's the way those men are looking. Go off instead into the mountains, and when you get there, hide. Stay put for 3 days. Find a cave, find some brush. Stay there for 3 days. When things calm down, and the men by then will have come back to the city, then go on and go back to your tribe. Go on to your people. And so they did. They hid for 3 days before they went back to Joshua. And then the message came to Joshua, and he told them how God hath delivered this land into our hands. These people are afraid. can probably tell the story of Rahab. But what this lesson leaves us with always is that question. Rahab lied. Is it okay to lie in this situation? That's a good question. In fact, ask Reverend Geikelar about it tomorrow or Wednesday. And the reason I say that is because him and I have had lots of conversations about this specific question. He's had some good thoughts on it. We've come to an interesting conclusion. What would you do? What would I do if I had been living with my grandparents, per se, in the Netherlands during World War II? And say our family had been hiding a Jewish person who the Germans were out to find. And maybe I knew that could be a situation. Or maybe a British paratrooper had been shot down and he came into my house to hide. And I welcomed him into my house. We had dinner together. We fellowshiped together. We prayed together. We sang together. We did all those things. And now, all of a sudden, knock, 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 here comes the Germans. They're looking for this British paratrooper. They're going house to house. And they ask me, do you have this man here? What would I do? Should I turn him over to the Germans knowing there's a good chance he's going to be killed? Or do I lie? We'll talk about it more, but I'll let you ask him. See what you have to say. In our lives, what would we do? Would that be wrong to lie? What would be the right thing to do? Or ask mom and dad tonight. Sit down at the dinner table. Put yourselves in that situation. What would you do? It's an interesting and difficult position to be in. So, I think I know what I would do. But I want you guys to maybe think about it and discuss a little bit. Maybe ask mom and dad. So, gather some information. See what Reverend Geikelar has to share with you. And then we'll talk about it later this week, maybe a little bit later. What would you do in that situation? Okay?